on infrastructure, and it is because we have fallen behind on our infrastructure. In California for 40 years nothing was built. But the same thing is of course the case also nationwide. You know that for the last 4 decades we have not really kept up with the infrastructure. As you have heard the governor just say earlier, we have maybe spent $900 billion to $1 trillion in the next 5 years, but we should be spending $2.2 trillion in the next 5 years in order to keep up with the demand. I think in order for us to be competitive economically, and we are the #1 nation economically and also the most powerful nation all the way around. In order to keep that position, I think that we have to do much better in our infrastructure, if it is in transportation, high-speed rails, rebuilding our bridges, tunnels, off-ramps, on-ramps, and all of those things, but also when it comes to energy, renewable energy, and the list goes on and on. So we wanted to just let the president know that we are 100% behind him on this, to go out and to sell this to the American people. I think there's a tremendous demand out there for this. I think it's important. Now is the best opportunity, and not only does it help us with to make our economy function better, but also it helps us with creating jobs, because as you know, in California we have just heard that there's a 10.5% unemployment rate. This creates jobs. Every $1 billion that you spend on infrastructure creates an additional 18,000 to 25,000 new jobs. So and I'm excited to be here. I'm excited about the fact that President Obama is interested in listening, is interested in rebuilding America. So this is why I think we are so happy that our partnership is now putting the spotlight on this issue. So with that, I want to hand it over to Mayor Bloomberg, please.
Arnold, thank you. I think it was very encouraging. The president gets it. This is about the future of our country, whether it's transportation or water or all of the other things that we need to invest now so that our children and grandchildren will have a future. We did talk an awful lot about transportation as one part of infrastructure, and the president understands that it's our ability to be in control of our own destiny, energy independence, mobility, competitiveness, as the governor Governor Rendell said, and Governor Schwarzenegger. We have to make sure that we have the infrastructure so that we will have a future, so that we can compete. If you go back and look in history, there have been great advances, whether it was the canals built during Jefferson's time or the railroads built during Lincoln's time, or what Roosevelt did in terms of building airports and other infrastructure, or Eisenhower with the national highway system. This is the time to boldly and to bring the change about that this country needs, and I think we have a new president who has the enthusiasm and the intellect and the drive to get this done. He also understands we all have to work together, work with Congress, and the three of us pledge that we will do everything we can to make sure that he gets the kind of support that he needs and the help. Thank you. Ed?
Questions?
Governor Schwarzenegger, do you think the Republicans in Congress are giving the president a fair shot on these and other programs?
Well, I've said this many times. I think that when you go through difficult times like that, it is very important that we all work together. I think that in general, and I said this yesterday when I introduced President Obama, that the leaders must work together no matter what the party line is and what party you're from, especially in economic difficult times like this. These are very, very challenging times, and I think that the Democrats and Republicans have to work together in order to solve the problems. That's the important thing. So that's why I am supporting the president, and that I'm appreciative of the economic stimulus package that he put out there. California is benefiting. It's putting people back to work, and so I think that's the case all over the country. So I will always be supportive.
But are you happy that the Republicans in Washington are doing that?
As I said, I'm interested in one thing, and this is that all the parties work together, that everyone is collaborative, because the challenges are enormous, and so I ask everyone to work together.
This morning on your radio show, you said that infrastructure is very important, but it's not going to create that many jobs.
Well, it's going to create, as Ed pointed out, every $1 billion spent is going to put 25,000 odd people to work. But we have to understand that there are an awful lot of people in this country that are losing their jobs. Some have the skill sets to work in construction. Some have to find other kinds of employment. Small business, for example, will make an enormous difference. In New York City, 50% of the people that are employed work in small businesses. These are people who have the skills to work in stores and in offices and restaurants. Those kinds of things have to be, for a stimulus package, small business has to be a very big part of it. I think that infrastructure goes way beyond that. Infrastructure is our future. We have to get people working today, but we will continue to have problems in terms of supporting a growing population unless we make those big kind of investments now. You take a look out in California at the wildfires, and you take a look at in the West where agriculture doesn't have enough water to keep growing crops. There's a whole bunch of these things that we're going to have to work on. Rising oceans and along the coasts of this country, people are going to have ability to control water flow. There's a whole bunch of these things. We keep polluting our environment, and all of that stuff is the future of this country. It will create jobs. It just is not going to be enough of a solution to work us out of the problem right now, where we have a growing number of people who you have to have an enormous amount of sympathy for. They have lost their jobs or lost their houses, or they're worried that they will do so. And I think it's incumbent on the states and the cities at a local level to try to find real concrete solutions so that when people do get in trouble, they have somebody to turn to. At a macro level, at the level that the federal government works, they can give us the wherewithal, but it's up to Governor Rendell and Governor Schwarzenegger, Governor Patterson in my case, as well as the mayors of these cities, to really turn that into concrete programs so that you will be able to have a job.
Governor Rendell, the president
I didn't hear the question, sorry. We are trying to get as many endorsements as possible, and I think the way we won redistricting last November was because we got so many endorsements of 2,500 community leaders and organizations, and of course with our initiatives in order to straighten out the budget and to have budget reform. I think we need to win those things, and therefore I'm looking for as many endorsements. But you know, so we are very, very happy the way things are going.
Governor, Obama on board? Have you gotten that endorsement?
I don't know. I did not talk to him about that. No.
Governor Rendell, you said look at a bunch of different funding options. Did you discuss with the president the possibility of raising a gasoline tax?
No, we didn't discuss that specifically, but obviously that's something that is in the whole panoply of options that has to be considered. But I think realistically there's got to be a way to generate funding here in unique and different ways. And there are so many different suggestions. Selling tax credit bonds to individuals who could get a tax credit to help them defray their federal income tax. Doing Patriot bonds, flower bonds, having federal Garvey bonds, doing a federal capital budget. Interestingly, for $45 billion in debt service, if you did a capital budget along with the infrastructure bank, that would produce $500 billion up front to go into an infrastructure bank to do these major projects, like a high-speed rail system or passenger rail system all throughout the country, like reforming our rail freight system. And those are, I believe, workable suggestions, because you'd leverage another half a trillion, maybe $1 trillion in private sector investments with just some changes in the tax code. So there are ways to fund this without all of a sudden having a big ticket like we've done in so many other things recently. There are ways to fund a significant infrastructure repair program. And let me point out that every one of the G7 nations in the last 15 years has undertaken major infrastructure repair programs. Japan and Germany a few years ago, $1 trillion programs, countries that are a fraction of the size of ours. The European Union has a European infrastructure bond bank to finance a lot of these things. So we're behind the curve. We're behind the curve, as Governor Schwarzenegger said and Mayor Bloomberg said, about goods movement. The 10 biggest ports in the United States have 1/3 of the throughput of the 10 biggest ports in China. If we don't do something with this, as the mayor said, we are mortgaging our country's future. Absolutely.
And there you have it, of course. These governors talking with reporters after meeting with President Obama about that stimulus plan and how it will help create jobs in their states and how they want to use that money effectively. It's big news there at the White House, and certainly as the president tries